expanding reality.
Welcoming back to the show, Etienne de la Boetie². Outstanding. It's good to see you, my friend. How are you?
It is good to see you and good to be with you and your audience.
Hell yeah. Well, you sent me the updated version, your 5th edition of your book, of course, Government, the Biggest Scam in History. You reached out and timed this perfectly because I just handed out the first one that you gave me to somebody who was over here just obsessed with it. He was, yeah, there you go. He was thumbing through this thing and I was like, you know what, dude, just take it. And then a week later, you reached out, sent me the updated version, which I love, by the way. The children now have masks on their faces in the classroom. So very nice touch. And just curious on the 5th edition here. Have you just thought about writing a new book?
You know, it's funny. And so when I was writing the 5th edition was almost a year late because my goal was to really expose the scam of the COVID, how they did the COVID, how the, everything, how the deception worked. And as I began writing the section on the COVID, it kept getting bigger and bigger. The problem wasn't that there was like not enough evidence. The problem, there was like too much evidence. And I began, massive amounts of foreknowledge, massive amounts of disaster capitalism, massive, kind of evidence of criminality. And I eventually had to just stop. I mean, like people were banging on me like, hey, where's my book? And like, what's going on with the book? And so I pulled everything, almost everything. There's still, a lot, about some stuff about the COVID, but I essentially pulled it out. I released everything in a kind of a monograph called Solving COVID, the COVID-19 eugenics vaccine drug scam timeline. And we put that on our Substack at artofliberty.substack.com, where we expose the thesis is that COVID was a eugenics program and one of many, like an ongoing litany of programs that go back to the Spanish, quote unquote, Spanish flu, where all of these were vaccine drug scams, where they're pulling the same thing. They're staging a fake pandemic, creating, fear in the population, selling them vaccines and drug scam and drug interventions that they're, behind in a kind of a, staged play to sell the vaccine and the drug scam intervention. The vaccine drug scam makes people worse, whether it's AZT for the scam of AIDS or remdesivir and ventilators for the scam of the COVID. And then they point to the damage done by the vaccines and the drug scam interventions. And they say, see, this is evidence of this, this pandemic that we claimed was going on. And then it's more of the same. And so, I really, took it back and I created a timeline so that the reader can see that, hey, this is a pattern and it's the same scam, essentially a version of the same scam every time. And then, public funds are expended on vaccines. So we're going to hand billions and billions and billions of dollars to the vaccine companies for something that we staged with fake tests and a media, media campaign. And, the subtitle of the book is How Intergenerational Organized Crime Runs the Government, the Media, and Academia. And if you're controlling the media and academia, you can, you're controlling the information they can receive, the population receives. And if you're controlling the population's inputs, then you can make them believe, whatever you want, man. You can make them believe that dinosaurs chase around, Jeeps on an island in the Pacific. It's ridiculous.
It's fascinating, man. And this whole perception management angle to this is what is very, very interesting. And what's most obvious, to be honest with you, where we are now with it, it's just boring and obvious, isn't it? Where do you find yourself with the narrative now? Like, where do you think it is?
So, it's funny. I'm participating in an event called The End of COVID.
Love that.
You can get information on our Substack at artofliberty.substack.com. But there's going to be 90 plus experts doing 90 plus sessions on every aspect of the scam of the COVID, from how they staged the hospitals and made it look like there was pandemic conditions in certain hospitals, especially Elmhurst in New York, to the scam of the PCR tests, to how to detox the vaccine to how do we move forward. I'm doing a session along with Mark Gober on really the scam of government, which is the biggest scam in history that makes the scam. Yeah, oh, fantastic. Yeah.
Oh, Mark's a dear friend, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I just got to meet him. I just came back from Rebels with a Cause, and so Mark and I, when we filmed the session for the end of COVID, we really hit it off, and then we got to meet each other and hang out at Rebels for a Cause, and I've just really been impressed by him.
Dude.
But so we're now at the point of where anybody that actually wants to know what really happened can go out and can figure it out. Like the research community and the investigative journalist community, the honest, what I like to call the authentic voices of developing alternative media. We've already got it nailed. We know who did it. We know how they did it. And so a lot of people, unfortunately, don't want to know how they did it and don't want to know. And so there's a huge, cognitive dissonance problem. But like anybody that wants to really understand what happened and the scam of it and who was behind it, to a certain degree, I believe that that's public knowledge. You just have to go and look. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't want to go and look.
Mm. And I believe a problem is just an opportunity in disguise, So with this, I feel given a great vision of what's going on here and vision of things that folks like you and I had seen, to a certain degree and we're well aware of. I mean, you'd written 4 editions by the time that COVID came out. And so it's one of these things to where it's well established, but I think it's so ridiculous and obvious now that it's so out in the open that it's meant to be, again, an opportunity in disguise. And it's witnessed as such rather than a lot of fear from more people than would have received that information before. Do you find that to be accurate, that there's some sort of emotional maturity that we've reached as a society to be able to take this new information in a new way?
I hope so. I mean, there's a kind of psychological phenomenon known as the 100th monkey effect.
Yeah.
Where, where populations all come to kind of the same understanding at the same time as it spreads, kind of virally through society. And I hope we're getting there to the point of where, people at least realize the basics, that the media is lying to them, that the media can't be trusted, that the media is being manipulated like a giant machine. The CIA calls it the mighty Wurlitzer, and a Wurlitzer is an organ of many pipes that can all be played by a single operator. And so this organized crime system, which includes the intelligence agencies, they can play the media like this mighty Wurlitzer. And, after you've been lied to by the television enough, I think at a bare minimum, people are realizing that the television is lying to them, that there's that the government is corrupt. Whether, I'm a voluntarist, I don't believe in the legitimacy, the desirability, or the necessity of having a government at all.
Come on.
But one of the things that I've kind of noticed is that a lot of people, whether you believe that government is legitimate or whether you don't believe government is legitimate, people are really coming to an understanding that the government in Washington, D.C. is organized crime. They are lying to the population. The media is in on it, and they're transferring trillions of dollars to private banks, private companies, defense contractors for weapon systems that we don't need to go fight a proxy war in Europe that they're fighting to essentially to make money and to for a variety of selfish reasons that have nothing to do with the safety and security of the United States or the well-being of people in Europe or anything like that. And so I really do believe that that those two things are kind of percolating up, that the media and the government are lying, and it's organized crime at the top, whether or not you believe in having a government at all.
I go so far as to ask people what their thoughts are on freedom, and one of the not tests on this, just one of the gauges on where we are is to ask them about seatbelt laws. Do you ever talk about this? Like you ask somebody, do you believe in seatbelt laws? And some people will say, Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Yeah. They must be enforced and they must be a law. And then I know that I'm probably just not on the same level of what freedom means to me as that person. Like I don't need to be governed in that way, right? If you're running around in a vehicle that's dangerous and you choose not to have a seatbelt on, that's different by conscious understanding than to just put your child in harm's way. There's again a difference, a disconnect in emotional understanding and maturity there. So what are your thoughts on like the real legitimacies of actual freedom?
So I'm going to be speaking at the Freedom Under Natural Law conference that's coming up here in late June, and the freedom of natural law is really educating people on what natural law is. And in natural law, there's 5 to 7 transgressions that are obviously wrong. It's murder, theft, assault, rape, and these are all kind of
Kicking
thefts. And
puppies. Yeah.
yeah, kicking, well, which would be kind of assault,
Yeah. Yeah.
and those are all thefts of some kind. Like murder is the theft of life, rape is the theft of sexual choice, trespassing is the theft of security in your lair. And so all of those are obviously wrong because there is a victim. And so, everybody can kind of agree. It's almost like a codification of the golden rule: do unto others as you can have others do unto you. And almost everybody can agree that those things are wrong because there is a victim. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is that the word right, I have a right to have a gun, or I have a right to freedom of speech, or, when people say I have a right, well, that also comes from the natural law tradition, and a right is anything that's not a wrong.
Yeah.
And so if you're not hurting somebody else, it's your right to be left alone by government or by your neighbors or whatever it is, as long as you're not hurting anybody else. And that's that simple system that even a kindergartner can know. You don't need, look at all of these law books of rich mahogany. You just don't need any of that, of this, statist laws and ridiculous regulations and all of these things that frequently violate people's natural law rights. And if we had that kind of law system, if we had that kind of system of law, then we wouldn't have prisons filled with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands, if not a million plus, people being in prison for victimless crimes, for where there is no victim. There no one was harmed, and a seatbelt law is just one example of all of the crazy victimless crimes that they trick the police into setting their morality aside and using violence on peaceful people to raise revenue for the government, or to engage in this kind of social engineering where things are done forced upon you for your own good. Well, when they're forcing the police to do that, when they're forcing the police to charge money to people for a seatbelt law, or to arrest them for seatbelt laws in the extreme, which happens, then that makes the policeman the bad man. And that's one of the reasons that you can know that government is illegitimate and criminal and corrupt, is because they're using violence on peaceful people for things that aren't really crimes.
Well, what's more to that is that I have a high reverence for folks who choose to go into military service or to choose to go into voluntary service in any respect, police, fire, anything like that. And one thing that separates the idea from the occupation, I suppose, is the courage it takes to be willing to step up for fellow man, and your family really is what it's about. It's not for dying. I mean, what's that saying? Nobody ever died for their country. He died for a flag, which is very, very different. So with that, though, that understanding, there, again, I have a high reverence for police, and we know quite a few of them, some folks that were in SWAT and did some really deep, awesome shit. And with those folks, they are looking at the news in the same way. And again, right back to what you said with media. Media presents white cop shoots black, whatever. And in that narrative, there's something being spun there. But the truths are being pointed out in a way to highlight a distinction between race, a distinction between also citizen and police, which is really peace officer, which is how these police officers view themselves. They're peace officers. That's the oath they take, actually. And so this idea of them countering this in a way, they're walking into this every day, to where if it's a black cop that shoots a white, whatever, just for instance, then it's not reported as such. And so there's obvious disparities that are being clearly guided in a way and perception managed in that way. So from the perspective of the peace officer who wakes up every morning to do the best good that they can, they're now faced with that as well. And in the environment, perhaps, where they're surrounded by quite a few others that do embody the Nazi narrative and that do say that, maybe I've got some mental issues, but I'm going to take that homicidal rage out with my baton on some person in the street rather than seek actual help and guidance, right? I think that there's a definite difference in there. All are represented, but the one that's highlighted is far fewer in number. I really, truly believe that the one that will stand up against their morality is far fewer in number, and it's only shown to be larger on TV. And most of that shit's fucking fake, and you know that.
So, I'm the founder, one of the co-founders of the Thick Red Line Project.
Yes.
And so the Thick Red Line Project, we started this in during the COVID and the lockdowns and the mask mandates, where we realized, because we were doing civil disobedience and the police would come up and they would, tell us to get off the beach in Santa Cruz. We were doing, peaceful civil disobedience. We were having beach parties. We were reopening the beaches. We were reopening parks. We were doing, things like that, and encouraging people to say no to the tyranny of the lockdowns. We were trying to get businesses, to reopen. And so the police would frequently come out and we would have, conversations with them, and we'd explain that, you can't kick people off the beach. You can't threaten people with violence to leave the beach. And that, and you could tell that they didn't want to be going along with it. And so, they would be like, yeah, man, I know this is all BS, but like, what are we supposed to do? And so, I had a kind of like epiphany, and I'm like, well, the strongest thing you should do is you should say no collectively as a department, or as the majority of the department, or whatever it is, supported by the people that don't want you to be doing it either. Nobody here wants you to be, threatening people with violence for something that's not a crime. And, the police have the kind of the thin blue line. And so we came up with the thick red line, because if you're going to draw a line in the sand and you're going to say, I'm not willing to do, be a bad person for a politician, well, the where you need to draw the line really is victimless crimes. And so if you're using violence on peaceful people for politicians, either to raise revenue or for, some kind of social engineering scheme or whatever, then the police really do need to say, hey, we're not going to do that. Like, that makes us, bad people, because we would be using violence on somebody that's not really causing harm in the world. And so there's a mechanism, natural law. It's got, 1,000+ year tradition across multiple different civilizations. Everybody's got the golden rule. It's very, very, like law does not have to be complicated. Law is very, very simple. In fact, you can even boil it down to do no harm. As long as you're not doing harm in the universe, then everybody ought to leave you alone. Now, if you're doing harm, and so the police should be focused on people doing harm. And so, everybody loves the police when they're going after rapists and murderers and thieves and things like that. And so we were trying to restore respect to the police, so that they could have that respect again in their community, because they were really losing it. I mean, they were really losing it by enforcing, these mask mandates and these lockdowns in the community. And so we were trying to help them. But the police need to help themselves as well, and they really do need to draw a line, and they need to say, hey, we're not going to, be arresting people for victimless crimes.
Yeah, completely agree. And you did that with that great example. And then now they're given an example of really what they're capable of. And hopefully they go back and research that stuff. And like you said, collectively, there have been many police agencies that have dropped their batons, that sergeants will come out and say, you know what, we're not enforcing this, and drop it. And collectively, and in countries across the world, I want to say France did this as well, and a few others, but just ones that I caught. And it's an interesting thing to see whenever you really boil it all down, that it's just people. And we're all just here. I mean, to have an experience at its core, probably, but really that there's just a huge, elaborate game afoot. And it's easy to disconnect from, or let me say this, it's simple to disconnect from. It's not easy. And I understand that. It can become so by empowerment with knowledge, which is what you're providing here. And again, the resources that you get, and I had it noted here to ask you about the Art of Liberty, of course, and the Thick Red Line. And it's sort of a, yes, do no harm. But I would add to that, my wife got me a shirt. It's absolutely my motto: do no harm, but take no shit. There's a combined element of being a warrior in a garden that's very important here, to where you're not going out and seeking violence, but also you absolutely know and that you're a sovereign citizen and how to defend yourself should you need to, right? And so this collective empowerment is where we get the confidence to stand with one another rather than being reliant on someone to come save me, or, oh, I can call a cop and then they'll come. Well, that hands that power over to somebody else. Like I was explaining earlier, we live out on 12 acres in an unincorporated city. It takes the cops 20 minutes to get here if they leave now. From wherever we are, from like en route, fast as they can get here. So we do things on our own out here. We're very used to that mentality. But again, I've seen that translate into my ability to call bullshit and to say no to the things that you're calling out on here, but also to empower others to do so as well. And also to let cops, military personnel, all y'all, we're not against you. We're all in this together, but there's an empowerment in the wisdom and knowledge that Etienne provides here that helps us all out a lot. And again, to understand that we're all in this together, just with the empowerment and knowledge, because it would like the system, whatever that is, the lizard turds, the organized crime rings would love for you to be in fear all the time. And just for the police to wake up every day with these scary stories and to walk in bulletproof vested up and kissing their families goodbye. And that's the mentality that those peace officers go into every day. And they're like, hang on, I signed up to be a peace officer. And they're strapping on mace and all kinds of stuff that most of the time they don't use. But again, they're mentally prepared for just this world to fight them constantly. And so it's, again, an interesting psychology, but really to empower them with the information that you provided here is the way, and the grace that we have to just talk with them about it. So I love what you're doing, dude.
If they would just stop if we could just stop this drug war, which is really drug prohibition, which creates, doesn't get rid of drugs. It creates a black market that then, is run by criminals and creates all of the ancillary violence that produces. All of that violence would be gone. All of the deaths associated with adulterated drugs would be gone. There wouldn't be any more people, teenagers dying because their drugs are laced with ketamine or laced fentanyl or any of these other things. Because you'd be able to go, like people that have drug problems would be able to go to, a pharmacy and get pharmaceutical grade, know exactly what they're, shooting or smoking. And there would be a lot less of it because you would take the mystique out, you would take the profit out. The neighborhood drug dealer wouldn't be able to make any money anymore. So he doesn't have the hot car and the bling and the cash.
He can pursue his art career like Hitler should have, You can just go do something else. Well, and then the silly thing is like you could just grow plants and connect with cannabis on your own for all the goddamn reasons, dude. But that would again crumble the pharmaceutical industry. So it seems that the government is in cahoots with the fact that the drug trade is what it is and that they're really in control of it, which we fucking know this at its core, man. You have such great information on this stuff. But living in Texas, if a bird is in a seed with, like, let's say a bird is in a cage and it gets transported here from somewhere where weed is legal, California, something like that. And it gets out, okay, en route, and it flies around. Now, birds, seeds don't digest in your body. You know this because you shit out like sesame seeds and stuff, right? Well, birds do this at an extreme rate because all they're doing is consuming seeds. So they're just shitting out fucking seeds everywhere. So like it's the same way that our pond gets new fish in it because the birds will go land in shallow water to drink out of somebody else's pond. Those eggs get on its legs and then it comes over to our pond. Now we have perch. Perch showed up here like 3 years after we lived here. We'd never had them before. The birds bring them. But if that bird that had eaten the marijuana seed had come over and flown over my property and took a shit and a pot plant grew and some DEA agent wandering way the fuck out here is able to find that, that's an issue. And that's fucking stupid, dude.
So I actually have a personal friend in West Virginia where a helicopter landed on their property because they spotted marijuana plants growing on the property. And now this one wasn't accidental. He was treating himself like legitimate medical need, okay, would make tincture because he was literally crippled with pain and had a landscaping company and was just racked with pain from all of the physical work that he was doing and everything. But literally, a helicopter lands on this guy's property, and then I don't know how much it cost him and all of the inconvenience and all everything like that. But like we're going to harass people that aren't hurting anybody else. We're going to spend millions of dollars. We're going to fly helicopters.
Yeah.
And we're going to have all of these people involved with literally harassing patients, treating their pain with a plant. It's madness. It's madness.
It is fucking madness. And then you think about that helicopter pilot gearing up and fueling up that morning. And then you think about all the agents that are hopping onto that helicopter to go kick the door into this cartel's place where they saw these plants growing. There's no recon in there. All they saw something and then, yep, got it.
It was like 7 plants. It was like it was nothing. It was literally just personal use. It might not even been 7. It was either 4 or 7. But like the point is like we're not talking about it's just dumb.
It's not the Escobar of pod. He's not. I mean, you're right. And so then the question is this is silly, right? So it's all silly, and you and I could yes and each other.
It's not silly. It's stupid.
We know,
it's ignorant. It's dumb. It's
truth.
Dumb.
Truth. Respect to the truth. But to that point, then where we are now, and I know where you are too, is yes, it's obvious and we can see it, but we also know that just yelling at it doesn't change anything. So we see it, and then we can create from the template of what they wish us to have as an option of experience that we don't choose. This Klaus Schandl Schwab shit, I say it all the time. That's just an option of experience. It's not an inevitability. And I truly believe this at our core. I say the B word, believe, very, very selectively. And in this place, I absolutely mean it. I believe at our core, we are here to create the place in which we want. And that all the things out here are simply options of experience. And the more you want to stare at them and complain about them, absolutely, they're going to continue to perpetuate. But where we are now, and I know where you are, man, is to move to the solutions-based part of this. So I'm shocked it took me this long in the conversation actually to ask you about this guy, but what are your thoughts about a dude named Brandon Joe Williams with the sovereign citizen stuff? Have you heard any of this stuff?
I haven't. I'm not.
Oh my God.
It's the first time I've heard the name.
Okay, well, I'm going to connect to you either way, but I'm curious about your whole thoughts. If you've had any thought on just abstaining from the U.S. citizenship altogether to be a true American and what that really means. Have you looked into this at all to get out of the corporation that is the U.S.?
Yes. I mean, I've looked at it like cursorily, but like my feeling is that I'm a true human being. Like I'm a human being that lives on this planet, and I'm not, in the same way that you don't have to be a Crip because you're born in East LA, or you don't have to be a Blood because you're born in Compton or whatever it is, that I'm just a human being on this planet. I'm not in any kind of gang. Now, that doesn't mean I don't have great affinity and love for the people that my neighbors and my friends, and I have I've got more of a connection to Texas than I do to any place else that I've ever lived, and I consider myself, I jokingly call myself a misplaced Texan, but I don't have any allegiance to a political system in Texas or a political system in Washington D.C. or anything like that. And so I'm already, I don't think I have to fill out any paperwork to be free. I'm essentially free. I'm supportive of everything that people are doing to expose the criminality, remove themselves from the corporate fiction of the birth certificate and the social security number and the all of these things that are being imposed on them and being forced to, participate in these admiralty courts, where their rights are have been stripped away from them before they even walk into the dock. I get all of that. I'm 100% behind it, and I'm supportive of it. I just don't do it necessarily myself, but very supportive of it.
Got you. And I was just curious about what you thought, because allegedly we've been all unconsciously subscribing to this. And basically this is a way to unsubscribe from the emails. And again, it's one of the most American things you can do is unsubscribe from the U.S. corporatocracy.
By the way, that's a cool analogy. I really like that. I'm going to use that.
That's how I feel about it. You're going to love this, dude. But this is the whole thing about it. It's basically you're expatriating. You're not, what's the word? You don't renounce your citizenship. That's very important. Do not renounce your citizenship, because that means you're not a citizen of the land or of the corporation. But the corporation, dude, all this is definitions. We're gonna have to go into that. We're gonna do a whole thing together. Just to go over it real quick. All the corporation shit is it's all located in Washington, D.C., which is we all know and own its own thing that's out of laws, out of time, out of everything. So the land of America is different. That's a native soil. That's very, very different. Whenever you check I'm a U.S. citizen on anything, you're saying that I'm an employee of the state of U.S., which is a corporation. And then you have the state of California, and all of it's capitalized rather than lowercase. Like, all of this stuff means something, but it's all backward speak, and it's just shit because you didn't know better. Like, that's all this is. It's like no fault of anyone's, but technically you've been checking a box you haven't meant to. And all it means then is that you just expatriate. You just say, you know what? I'm not all about bombing a bunch of families, and I'm not all about kicking in doors and burning down compounds with people just living their lives. Like, I'm not okay with that. And so that part of the land of America, in which I'm very proud to be a part of, and the people that inhabit it, yeah, I'm abstaining from. No, thank you. You know, again, it's an unsubscribe button. That's all it is. This holiday season, you might be looking for nutritious, convenient meals to keep you energized on jam-packed days. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service, can help you fuel up for brekkie, lunch, or dinner with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. They just drop them at your door, people. You'll save time and eat well. You'll stay on track with your healthy lifestyle while taking all of your holiday to-dos in stride with good meals in the tum-tum. If you're too busy with all this stuff, these meals are easy to get done. They taste great. All you've got to do is head over to factormeals.com/expandingreality50 and use code expandingreality50 to get 50% off. That's code expandingreality50 at factormeals.com/expandingreality50 to get 50% off.
I love it. Can you still get a bank account? Because that really is the choke point of how the organized crime government and the organized crime banking system have us by the throat, is the ability to do commerce.
What I feel
controlling the ability to do commerce.
What I feel that they've done a great job at is convincing a lot of us for a long time, and we're very much coming out of this hangover, that that was our only option. Because again, this either or system is what we're crumbling here. So the thought that way of monetary, like we could get buttons and just start trading that shit, and I'd be fine with it. We get a bunch of land, you lend things out, cool, I'll pay you in buttons. That's fine. Like there's a ways in which we can just abstain from this shit. And also, though, maybe play a little role in some capacities. But again, there are massive empowerment elements to this. As I'm going through the dude's course, I'm looking at the things. It's very compelling. It's incredibly compelling right under your nose. And again, it's just one of those things that's like of course they wouldn't advertise this. Just like learning your taxes or something in school. It's something you figure out later, but they're not going to let you know about it, you know? But it's absolutely within your right. It's a shadow parasite.
There's a lot of things the school isn't going to tell you about.
Dude, fucking totally. There's a lot of value in the social structures. And I know you and I going into, school gave us a lot of social abilities, to like hang out and be fun and be able to get social cues and things like that. That was valuable. But as far as like an actual education, yeah, I've learned most of that in the past 10 years, 20 years on my own. For sure.
Yeah. You have to be a lifelong learner. You've got to be a self-learner. You've got to realize the value of that knowledge really is power. And the school's not going to teach you that. In fact, the school, as I break down in Government, the Biggest Scam in History Exposed, I break down the scam of the school. There's a hidden curriculum. And part of that hidden curriculum is convincing you that you are an American and that government is legitimate before you're old enough to really evaluate the logic and the morality of that claim yourself. There's an obedience component to get you to get you used to taking orders from government officials and hierarchical command and control for the kids that go the JROTC route and the police explorer route. And then there's a debilitation component too, because it's going to be fluoridated water in the water fountain. It's going to be 70 74 vaccine shot, individual shots, for you to be able to attend, unless you understand your rights to opt out. And so there's this complete hidden curriculum in the government school system that a lot of people don't know about. And they're not going to teach you the trivium. They're not going to teach you grammar, logic, and rhetoric so that you have a firewall in your mind where you can realize when people are trying to trick you with language. They're not going to teach you logical fallacies. They're not going to teach you, a great many things that if they were even doing the basic job of trying to, to raise you to be an independent, free-thinking individual, of course you would give people the trivium. Yeah. Of course you would teach people how to recognize logical fallacies. But the school is not going to do that because the curriculum is being handed to the teachers, from above, and the people that design the curriculum don't have your child's best interest at heart.
Dude, totally. And this is why I don't know if we talked about it on air or off, but the conscious parenting network that we have going on. And this is about this unschooling. Simon Esler on the show, amazing dude, going to connect you with him. I have a list of people I'm connecting with too. We're going to do a big meeting here soon. And all of those types of things to where they're unsubscribing from that nonsense. So knowing the environment that they're placing their children in, knowing what we came through, I've discovered this a lot in my own path. And so that's what I speak to here. But it's sort of our jobs to pick up where our parents left off in a lot of ways with their healing, with any of the trauma that was, handed to them from their parents and so on and so forth. So like, for instance, drinking in my family, I stopped it. I'm done. 2 years ago, completely stopped drinking. I've absolutely no fucking desire, but it's something I stopped where I feel that went too long in my family, and everyone knows this, to where it should have stopped by then. But again, same thing to enrolling your children and sticking them with all these things. Like there are alternatives here. And that's what this conscious parenting network is creating. And that's like what information, like what's in your book here. Again, guys, linked down in the show notes. Make sure you check it out. That's what we're talking about here, is actionable ways to take this information and to go, we've sat in the fear part of it for long enough to say, you know what, that's motivating us to move and to really branch out, to be part of our own. So that's my question to you. Do you feel that there is an element to this to where we can actually, as a collective, as some sort of community, unsubscribe from the corporatocracy that is the U.S. government and do our own thing in a way?
Oh yeah, and it's already, to a degree, it's already happening. And so, one of the things I updated in the 5th edition of Government, the Biggest Scam in History, is a chart in the back showing how many people pulled their kids out of the school system. And it was somewhere, around 2 million kids got pulled out of the government school system. Now, in 2022, it went back up. So like I say like half, forgot how the exact number, but like 500,000 put them back in. But I think that, that well over 1 million parents pulled their kids out and are now either homeschooling them, private schooling them, self-directed learning, apprenticeships, whatever it is. I think that was one of the best things that came out of the COVID is people are pulling their kids out of the government indoctrination system and, homeschooling them where, they're not learning, any of this statist claptrap and, and they're, it woke the scam of the COVID woke a whole bunch of people up to the reality and the illegitimacy of what's going on in DC, and a lot of them pulled their kids out of the system. And so, I think that's incredibly positive.
Agreed. And not that I see this as some sort of competition or anything, but one metaphor for it would be like a tug of war. And, in tug of war, if you can get a little bit and hold it, you've gained quite a bit. So with this as well, it feels that we've gained quite a bit here. And that again, to what you said earlier about the 100th monkey effect, is it resonating out like crazy, like wildfire. Wildfire, rather. I'm thinking of wildflowers right now. And it's just one of these sweeping movements that's so empowering. But again, resources like yours are the reason that we are so empowered by this is because we're not doing it alone. We're not standing by ourselves. We're not the one to initiate the 100th monkey. We're joining in because we feel inspired by those that are also inspired around us, like yourself, man. That's why you are the damn liberator, dude. This is great.
So it's funny. So, what I'm trying to do for those that aren't familiar with the book is the book is really designed to, wake up your friends and your family, your colleagues as to what is going on. And it's how to take somebody from kind of like 0 to 60 in the shortest amount of time. And this is kind of like a cool story, but so the book is backed up by this credit card size flash drive that we call the Liberator. And once you have a Liberator, the Liberator's got the PDF version of the book, and it has, documentaries and short videos and important books in PDF and kind of everything you would need to get yourself smart about what's going on and the alternatives and the solutions and things like that. And so once you have a Liberator, then anybody can make their own Liberator. And there's a little folder in it saying, how to make your own Liberator. And there's these little labels that you can print out, and you can buy commodity flash drives, and you can make these for your friends and family. And so I was at the Rebels for a Cause. I was a speaker at the Rebels for a Cause event in Nashville this weekend, and somebody came to me, came up to us and said, "Hey, I was at an event, like last week, and somebody showed up and dropped 15 Liberators on everybody in the event, and was like handing out 15, Liberators." And so it's decentralizing the ability to resist, it's decentralized resistance. So everybody is part of the resistance. Everybody can do just like, if everybody just does a little something. And, if making Liberators isn't your thing, I just like to throw sand into the gear. I like to pay with cash. We can talk about some solutions that I do, but I try and pay with cash anytime I can. And whenever I hand the merchant the cash, I always say something like, I'm giving you cash so you don't have to share it with the lying, thieving, stealing government.
I say this with waiters and waitresses. Yeah. Cause I waited. Cause they don't have to claim it.
A little bit of a little bit of sand in the gears, just a little bit of sand in the gears everywhere. I'm sure you've seen these gold backs. It's flexible, spendable gold. It's a way of getting gold into your community, so people have dollar alternatives. People
this is
love
what I'm
it.
Talking about.
Waiters love it. I'll jokingly say, "Hey, do you want your tip in paper or gold?" And they always say gold, and then they're thinking I'm kidding, and then I'll drop some gold backs on them, and they'll be like, "What is that?" And then you have a really interesting conversation. But paying with cash is one thing that I think is the easiest thing that almost everybody can do. And then it has all of these ripple effects that come after it. So number one, the merchant isn't getting dinged for, 1.75 to almost 3% in some cases for that credit card transaction. The bank is being denied the 1.75 to almost 3%, transaction as well. The business owner, the local business owner, now he can kind of keep more of what he saves. He doesn't have to report it all to the lying, thieving, stealing government. So now he's got more money to spend on his kids, guitar lesson, or his kids, sports team, or whatever it is. And so then that ripples throughout the community. Now the community is collectively sitting on more cash if there was a bank holiday or a banking crisis. And so there's all of these little things. I've got an entire article about paying with cash and other things you can do at artofliberty.substack.com. But there's all of these little bitty things that you can do, just paying with cash, that have all of these fantastic effects down the line.
Yeah, and withdrawing your business from a place that requires cash. We went to a Starbucks.
Oh, we did that the other day. We walked out. We were
Yep.
So my girlfriend and myself. And it was funny because we weren't going to eat there because they didn't have what we wanted anyway. But we noticed that as we were walking in, the sign on the door. And so we walked up to the bar and we asked them a question. And then by the way, we saw a sign. Do you guys really not take cash? And they're like, no, we don't. And we're like, well, we don't do business with people that don't take cash.
Yeah.
And then we walked out. And so like just like little things like that make
So they're aware.
so they're aware, and that he's going to go back to the owner and go, hey, I had some people like walk out because we don't take cash, and so like get it through your skull, like we don't want that in this community.
Yeah, and like you said, it's a skenoma, or just something that people let go because it's just ubiquitous, or seems to be, that using that form of tender is, number one, easier, but also it's going to come with dings, and they're just sort of blah, blah, blah. They're ones and twos, and they'll be added up later because the value, right? They look into these percentages, and so they're missing out on a big empowerment key that they have there to not contribute, like you said, energy in these small ways that add up really to larger energetic contributions down the line. Love this idea, dude. And so exactly to what you said about the cash thing, man, as well as if you're in, this is, I guess, just for the audience, at a lemonade stand, if you go buy the eggs from your local butcher, raw milk or something like that, if you've got someone mowing your lawn, don't throw it to their fucking PayPal, dude. Give them cash. Those people are going to then have to not report it, all of those things. It takes nothing to take cash out of your account. And to keep a little on you, I'm always telling my wife this, dude. This is something I've told her for years. Keep cash on you, always. And it's just one of these things, man. And so, like you said, I participate in that type of value exchange for the analog element of it, for the real visceral, hey, this is something that's very meaningful that you and I can both see and feel in tangible reality. It's a exchange of energy between us. And it's more meaningful, I feel.
Yeah, and buy things at the local farmers market.
Hell yeah.
Like nobody should be buying soap at HEB. Like you
love HEB.
Like go, yeah.
Fucking love HEB. I don't.
But I threw that in as a Texas reference.
I know you did, and I appreciate it.
We don't have HEB up here. That was
the B stands for butts.
Yeah. Does it really?
Yeah, Herbert E. Butts. That's the dude's name, and so they just said HEB rather than writing butts real big over everything as also something you associate with putting in your mouth, the food, the groceries that feed your family. But we love HEB, dude.
Yeah, I can see that. Like I used to like Wegmans, but Wegmans was our
sounds like something you do with a wiener,
It is, and they sell a bunch of stuff that I'm against, but like other than that, and then they all drag their brand down by promoting vaccination in their pharmacies, which drives me crazy. Like nothing, like why do you want to destroy your brand in that way? But but like going to the farmer's market, spending cash there, buying everything that you can from the community instead of, from foreign corporations, these are all things that, that are kind of easy to do and fun. Like who doesn't like going to the farmer's market, man?
Oh my God. There's a ranch out here my wife gets her raw milk from, and a lot of times they'll drive up to a central location and she gets it, but we've driven out to the actual farm, and dude, there's just a building there, and they've got a camera, but it's just a cash only thing. You put your cash in the box, you take your milk out of the fridge, and you walk out. No one was there, but it was us and the cows and like a shitload of cats, and it was amazing, man. These kittens running around this dairy farm, we're petting cows everywhere, dude. Incredible. And then we just took our milk and went home and contributed to this farm, and we could see the cows that were giving it to us. It was unbelievable. And
just for the people that are listening to us that live in the big city and everything like that, when I lived in suburban, Northern Virginia, I was in a co-op. You can find it if you look. Okay, in my co-op, we were all in a deal with an Amish farmer in Pennsylvania that would have a Mennonite farmer drive the milk, like raw milk, fantastic cheese made by Amish farmers, and they had all kinds of different thing from popcorn to whatever. They would drive it down. You'd go to somebody's house. You'd go around kind of like to the, the back door, and there'd be 3-4 massive coolers there, and you'd find your milk and your cheese and your everything else. And then you would put the money, like a check or the money in an envelope, and it was all on the honor system, and nobody ever stole anything or anything like that. And it was just great. But like a lot of people don't even know that that's an option, that they can get raw milk and they can get, trusted produce. The Amish aren't using recombinant bovine growth hormone, and they're not, it's like.
But how will you be protected from the next thing that they say are blowing in on the wind?
Well, I know. Well, I mean, that's probably the reason why, that they weren't taking cash at this restaurant in Nashville was because, Brandon, we are in the middle of a global pandemic.
It's icky. Yeah. And, one of my favorite things to this, and we'll just point out some fun things in the Matrix, is that there was a lady standing there, no mask. And I was working during this time period, refused to wear the damn thing. At some points, didn't have that choice. And so I'd be wearing the thing, of course, as shittily as I could. I bought one of the ones that was just a mesh. You could see me talking through it, but it was still a face covering, right? Kind of a thing to prove the ridiculousness. Anyway, lady's standing there talking about how crazy this is and how scary it is and how she knows what's going on as she's pumping antibacterial soap onto her hands for a virus that they're saying is running around your lungs. And I'm like, that in my mind, of course, because there's no conversation that could be had at that reading level. I'm like, that's antibacterial. That's killing the things on your body that protect you from the thing that you're scared of that's running around out here. Didn't even get into the size difference between virus and bacteria. Didn't even get into that it wasn't antiviral, all these things. It's just an amazing thing to behold. And then I'm grateful to sit here and think, well, great, I'm not responsible for waking all these people up. I'm just simply responsible for being the lighthouse I am, having amazing conversations with folks like you and empowering those that choose to be empowered. And then we can look at those things as silly and say, you know what, no, thank you. And we're going to unsubscribe from that, but you guys have a ball with it. I love, though, your idea of opting into co-ops. My folks even, they live in Houston. They opt into an FFA, Associated Future Farmers of America. All of your schools have them. And those folks will actually raise animals, go to shows, and they love on these things, man. And then you get to buy, like they participate in they'll get like a half cow, a quarter of a cow, and it'll last them all year. And so you opt into this quarter cow, you have a freezer, you've contributed to a little kid who's learning how to do this probably for his family and maybe yours in the future. And it's something that, again, that's a feel good way of contributing. There's a energetic exchange in that, man. And that's something I think that you and I are most interested in articulating the value of to people so that they're willing to take it up for themselves.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And so, and again, it's like a muscle. And once you start flexing it and you realize, okay, I'm just doing cash, and all of a sudden you're feeling good, and you see the smile on the merchant's face as he gets cash instead of, the credit card, and, it feels good. And then it's, oh, look how easy this is. And then you go to the farmer's market and you have a great Saturday morning, and, you get food that you wouldn't have, you get some of the best food that you can, and you realize, oh my God, this is my community. These are the people. I need to know my farmer. I want to know my farmer.
Yes.
And then that is, that's the magic of like not only how easy it is, but how fun, and you're going to eat better, and you're going to have a good time, and you're going to meet more people, and you're going to meet your neighbors, and you're going to have more community, and it's a virtuous cycle, and it just takes, just do it. If everybody just did a little, like that's what I, meant by just like, like throwing like little bit of sand into the gears, eventually the machine stops.
Yeah, we're dumping concrete in it though, like it's a washing machine, like on Seinfeld. Remember when Kramer did that?
No, but I like that analogy. Because at the same time I'm throwing sand in the gears, I'm also simultaneously over here dumping it in concrete.
And that's right. Exactly. And the way this metaphor is in my mind now is before the sand absolutely slowed them down. And now it's doing it to a point to where they had the opportunity to stop the process altogether, but they chose to continue to run the gears. And so now if they continue to run the gears, it's mixing up the concrete that solidifies their own demise. So it's their choice as a system, as the global elite, as this scamdemic, whatever. It's their choice to continue to run the gears. We're opting out of it by pouring concrete in it. It doesn't have to settle.
We know I was talking about this on another podcast not too long ago, but like also, in this world, now in the information age, the people that are running it, you don't like, I say, you don't know who the CEO is, some members of the board of directors, but you really, really do understand who the generals are and who the colonels are, and like the infrastructure of tyranny. And in the past, those people were fairly anonymous. Like, only a very kind of tiny, amount of people knew who was participating in this tyranny and in the system. And now it's kind of out in the open. And now their kids, their kids have to go to college with kids that understand what's going on. And it's like, and so now, now it's kind of out in the open where I think it's probably getting uncomfortable for them at some, level.
Have you ever heard of Crow 777? Have you been on his show yet?
I haven't been on his show. Okay, I've tried to reach out to him, but I haven't been able to get a hold.
Either way, we'll get a chat set up. One of the things that he talks about on here was the sun changing. And this is a little bit of freaky woo-woo, so just go with us on this. That the sun is physically different than when it was when we were children. It was warmer, it was softer, it was more yellow when we were kids. And now it appears to some of us to be more harsh, more energy intense, let's say. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? It perhaps could be that the lizard turds, the generals that you're talking about here, are being thrown into the light because there's literally more light here. There's more light being cast down with a different energy. And so these things are scrambling into more shadows or attempting to. But really, this is why perhaps we see this release or this everything being brought to the surface, almost as in a great psychedelic trip to where you're releasing all of the things that no longer serve you. They come to the surface to be witnessed first in the light so that they can be addressed and we can move on them with grace and love, right? So to this, it seems that said lizard turds, are in this modus operandi to keep the thing going as best as they can, but that there's no need to anymore because again, it seems so damn obvious. It feels to us right now. And so again, with them standing up on podiums with mask lines being shown, with it being a different dude every damn time they're behind a podium, like with different backgrounds in the White House and things like this, all the silliness about it feels that there's just something bigger going on here. So to that, Crow said that maybe it's something sort of like Jules Verne novel, The Time Machine, right? To where there was a separation in the future physically, to where there were a bunch of awesome folks that were more in natural law, lived in harmony on the cliffs, above and everything like this, more in harmony with nature and simple, no technology to speak of, literally. And then underneath were these Morlocks or these, subterranean people that were just completely consumed with all these, let's say, low energetic, low base intuitions and things like that and desires. And so there was a physical separation of these things. And this is what I meant about is there going to be sort of a way of pulling out of this to where we won't see it anymore. Like the politicians aren't going to be up there on stage because there's no stage to go on to. Nobody's there listening.
I hope so. I hope everybody, so I'm trying to be the guy that widely exposes it. I want to be the guy that breaks the camel's back. And so, like I'm dancing as fast as I can. There are others doing it as well, but like eventually, what if they have a war and nobody shows up? Hopefully we can get to that. We can get to that point.
Brandon Williams, what he said that absolutely I loved and where I feel is that this is 1776 without the bodies, right? We don't need this sweeping revolution of guillotines in the street to make the sweeping change and unsubscribe from the fear narrative and just stop contributing energy to it. And it's as simple as that. I feel that we're all realizing that in mass because again, these things are being thrown into the light and it's like, well, there it is. How do you feel about it? These choice points are just moment to moment and daily and profound.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a beautiful world. And I'm, like one of the things I'm, really, really optimistic. A lot of some people are pessimistic. I'm optimistic. I just don't think that, you can stop the signal in the information age. And so, it was all about censorship, but every time they squash a new platform or buy off a new platform emerges. You can't censor somebody handing you a flash drive. You can't censor somebody handing you a physical book. And so that's the other thing I would encourage people to realize is the value of getting together with other people in your community and sharing ideas and having that freedom cell or having that liberty group or being, having, trusted, people that you trust in case there is an emergency, in case they do try something like a dollar collapse or a dollar devaluation or a false flag EMP or, something like that to try and stop this awakening that would throw them up against the wall, right? The idea of blowing up Nakatomi Plaza to cover their escape, should they try that? You want to you want to know the members of your community. You want to know your neighbors. You want to have good relationships with everybody around you. And the more of that you have, the less that they're able to censor us algorithmically on the DARPA internet, because you can't algorithmically censor a conversation held over a backyard fence.
That's right. They tried with that COVID shit, but they can't. You just can't. And that's what we really learned here, was that it was leaned into. And like you said, with the tug of war analogy that we were talking about, that, man, we gained a lot of ground in there. And I really feel that. Again, not that I see this as a battle. I don't see a bad guy, but to that, I do see that there are a lot of energies that are a part of something that's really, really motivating in a very uncomfortable way. And that to unsubscribe from that, but first to be able to bring them into the light with works like this, absolutely crucial in that first step. And so that's what I was going to say too, guys, is I don't know, just sort of a, think about it. We're coming up into summer here. I know we are around Texas. It's going to be 100 next week here. So we're already hitting that. But carry like $10 around with you, and perhaps a few of those Liberator flash drives. And whenever you see a lemonade stand, drive by, absolutely contribute to that young man or woman doing that. And then maybe offer them a Liberator as well with some information. The $10, here you go for this way over sugared whatever the fuck. And thank you very much for it. It's about, like you said, this connection to community. And again, that shows those young people that there are people out here who are willing to engage in a society to where that takes place, and one of kindness and respect and love, which is badass, dude. So, my friend, we're going to cap it on this one, but Government, the Biggest Scam in History, the 5th edition, located down in the show description. I'm looking forward to all the more conversations, man. We have so many more things to talk about, dude, and of course, all the ways to find you located down in the show notes. So, brother, man, you're welcome back anytime. Thank you.
Hey, Brendan, thank you for all you do, because it is a team effort. And so much gratitude to you as well.